Good morning. Today is Wednesday, the 25th day of Teves. We're going to begin Tanya. Let's begin with Tzedakah. Kedei letzedakah, shemek hareves hageula. And we begin today chapter 16 in Tanya. And the Alter Rebbe begins here with a very klal gadol, a very important rule in the way of the service of Hashem. A very major rule. Something that we need to know. And this is really the foundation of the Chabad movement that the Alter Rebbe established. The teaching of Chabad. What is Chabad? Chachma bina das, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. And the idea in Chabad is, it's not about that we are just intellectuals studying the intellect of God. The idea is to combine the Chabad, the wisdom, understanding, and the knowledge. And as we explained earlier in the chapters, the knowledge is connecting to what we understand, to become one with it. And it's so as we learned yesterday, there is the Alter Rebbe teaches us how to serve Hashem. And we explained there is the tzaddik, the righteous person who is purely godly, does not have any desires to do anything bad. We have the Rasha who does have the animal soul controlling. And we have the Beinani. Beinani is the intermediate person, the one who does have the animalistic desires. However, he does not allow it to control him. He controls, he gets the godly soul to control his body in thoughts, in speech, and action. However, when you work on yourself to control and to do the right thing, even though you know you have a desire, you want to do the wrong thing, you want to do what feels good, but yet you understand what is the right thing, to follow Hashem's ways. But in order to do that, if you just do it only because you understood that this is the right thing to do, it's going to be, number one, it's going to be very hard. How long can you control yourself and do things against your will? Because you know this is the right thing. That's not an easy thing. You may last for a day, two, a week, a month. Maybe sometimes you can last a longer, but it's not the same as when you develop a feelings towards something. Our relationship with Hashem, it's not like a business contract. We have a relationship like a marriage. If you're gonna get married, tell your wife, let's make a deal. I'm gonna do what I need to do. You do what you need to do. Let's agree to do each one and do their part. Let's work out all the details. Everything is done right. You may be doing the whole life, the right things, but there is missing something. There's missing the love, missing the feelings. So we need to create the relationship with Hashem, not just based on the understanding, but we need to create with the emotions. And this is what is Chabad. Chabad is taking the wisdom and the understanding and to have it knowledge, to connect to it, so we start feeling this. We develop a feeling of love to Hashem and fear of Hashem in our hearts. And then, number one, it lasts. That relationship can last. It's not something that every day you're doing something against what you want, because it becomes what you want. You want to connect to Hashem. And number two, it also elevates the actions of mitzvahs, what you do, receives their wings, as he calls them, to bring them up to the higher levels. And the Alter Rebbe is going to explain that there's this Beinani that is able to develop this kind of feelings. And then there are other Beinanis who are not able to have a true feelings developed in the heart. And he's going to talk about these two levels of Beinani. So let's begin. I was going to see it inside. Says the Alter Rebbe, "V'zeh klal godoil ba'avodas Hashem labeinanim." This then is the important principle regarding the divine service of the Beinani, the intermediate person. The essential thing is to govern and rule the nature that is in the left part of the heart. How do you do that? How do you control your emotions? So it says, number one, we have Hashem's help. By means of divine light that illuminates the divine soul abiding in the brain. And to rule the desires of the heart. So we have the two things. We have the natural way that God created us, that the brain, the intellect, rules over the emotions. Unlike an animal, a human being is able to control, to do the right thing. And number two, he also has the help of Hashem, the light of the neshama, the godly soul that shines. That when you want to do something, when you meditate about the greatness of Hashem, Hashem helps you by giving a spiritual feeling, a divine light that comes, that you'll be able to feel more the right way. And that's what the Rebbe says, this mastery of one's nature and desire is achieved when he meditates in his mind on the greatness of the blessed infinite God. So as to create, through his understanding, a spirit of knowledge and fear of God in his mind. So when you understand, you create the feeling of knowing, a feeling of fearing of God. On the one hand, so this knowledge and fear of Hashem, the awe of Hashem, will cause him to turn away from the evil condemned by the Torah or by our sages, even from a minor rabbinic prohibition, heaven forbid. So you have the fear of Hashem. You don't want to be separated from Hashem. And therefore, you're not going to do anything which is against the will of Hashem, which includes both biblical prohibition and rabbinical prohibitions. And on the other hand, you have also developing a love of Hashem. Contemplation of God's greatness will bring about also a love of God, which will reveal itself in the right part of his heart, the seat of the godly soul's emotional faculties. That we explained in earlier, that you have this right side of the heart, the left side of the heart. Left side of the heart represents the more materialistic, natural tendencies, desires, and the right side of the heart represents where the godly soul vests itself. So you develop a feeling of love to Hashem with a longing and desire to cleave to Him, to connect to Hashem. How do you connect to Hashem? By fulfilling the precepts of the Torah and of the rabbis, and the study of the Torah, which is equivalent to them all. As we learned earlier, studying the Torah connects you to Hashem in a way that no other mitzvah can connect you. So this is the rule, the basic rule that the Rebbe says, the important rule, that you need to create a feeling of love of Hashem through the contemplation, through the understanding, through studying the Chassidus, studying the greatness of God. And how the Alter Rebbe goes to say, what about that Beinani who tries the best? He's doing everything he can to do the right thing, to think. But you know what? It does not come out in his heart in an open way. He can't say, I'm in love of Hashem. Yes, I know, I understand this is the right thing. But it doesn't affect him in an open, revealed way in his heart. So the Alter Rebbe is going to say that really, if he does the best that he can, there is what's called the intellectual emotions, meaning that there's something that you have a conviction that this is the right thing to do, and that you can get. And you have the feeling, but the feeling is still concealed in the intellect. So this person is not able to develop it. Alter Rebbe says it's really not his fault. It is because that's the way his source of his neshama is. But as long as he does his job, and he based on the understanding of God and godliness, and studying the laws of the Torah, and studying everything else, it will lead him to do the right thing. He's also doing well. That is the second thing, what the Alter Rebbe says. Furthermore, one must know an additional important principle in the Beinani's service of God. Even if one's intellect and understanding are incapable of producing a revealed love of God in his heart, you cannot produce this really passionate, open love in your heart. To make it burn as it ought, with a fiery flame, with a desire and a longing and a passion manifestly felt in the heart to cleave to God. He can't do it. He's trying, but it doesn't work. What does work? He says, instead, the love is hidden in his mind and in the recesses of his heart. So he has the love, but it's hidden in his mind. And the Alter Rebbe is going to explain that in the note, that this is really not due to his fault. It is because this is where the source, the root of his neshama. And he explains that emotions are rooted in the intellect. And sometimes the neshama comes from such a place where the emotion is not revealed, just like there is emotions in humans, there is the spiritual emotive attributes. And the source of his soul comes from such a place where the spiritual attributes the emotive attributes are concealed and still in the root, which is the intellect, which means in the intellect there is the potential for emotions. But if it's not revealed, it comes out that even here in this world, when this person is trying to work and to reveal this intellect into emotions, and it doesn't go, which is, as the Alter Rebbe is going to explain, it's okay. That's what the Alter Rebbe says in the footnote. והסיבה לזה היא מפני היוס המויכן שלו ונפש רוח נשמה שלו בבחינס עיבור והלם תויך התבונה ולא מבחינס לידה ויסגלס כל ידע לידכם. Says that the reason for this inhibition is that this person's intellect and nefesh and ruach and neshama derive from the so-called ibur, the conception, and concealment within the supernal understanding, and not from the stage of Leda, birth, and revelation, as is known to the students of Kabbalah. The Hainu, Shalev, but basically we're going back to the point that this person is trying to develop the emotions in an open way, but he cannot do it. The only thing he can do is that deep in his heart, he understands deeply that he has a firm conviction after studying and understanding and meditating in the greatness of Hashem. He has the firm conviction that that's the right thing to do. This means that the heart comprehends with the spirit of wisdom and understanding in the brain. Meaning, instead of being excited with the love of God, as it ought to be, the heart merely experiences an understanding of the greatness of God. So, he understands the greatness of the blessed infinite God, before whom all else is as naught. Everything is like non-existing. Asher al kein, for which reason it is fitting and due unto him, blessed be he, that the soul of every living thing should pine for him, to cleave to and become absorbed in his divine light. When you understand this, when you study the greatness of Hashem, everything else is nothing. Every moment Hashem recreates us, we are nothing by ourselves. So what is the conclusion? Everything is Hashem. I want to be part of my source, of my life. So my soul is in a body. So the body, in a way, conceals that connection. So I want to come out of the body, can be connected with Hashem. But of course, ultimately, it's connecting in the body through mitzvahs. But is the way of the understanding of thinking. The greatness of Hashem leads to this understanding. It is likewise fitting for his own soul, the nefesh and the ruach within him, to language for him with a fervent desire to leave their sheath, meaning the body, which surrounds and conceals the soul like a sheath, in order to cleave to him. That's what he wants. He wants to come out and to cleave to Hashem. However, so intensely his thought continue. Should his nefesh and ruach, the different levels of the soul, they should long for Hashem, they should long for God, that only against their will do they dwell in the body. They are bound to it like deserted wives. That they cannot do. They have it's called a living widow, a woman who doesn't know if her husband is alive or not. So she's like in prison. So the soul feels like imprisoned in the body, in a sense. And while it's in the body, it cannot really connect to Hashem, cannot grasp godliness and connect to Hashem, except through Torah and mitzvahs. In the present state, their thought cannot grasp God at all, except when it grasps and vests itself in the Torah and its commandments. That's when, by studying Torah and observing its commandments, one grasps God's will and his wisdom, which are one with Hashem himself. This we learned in the earlier chapters. So therefore, that's the only conclusion that the person comes to, is I want to expire, I want to be connected to Hashem, but yet I'm here in the body, I'm in prison in the body, and I still want to be connected to Hashem. So what is the way I can do it? The only way is through the Torah and mitzvahs. Why? Because this is the will of God. This is the wisdom of God. When I understand God's will and wisdom, when I do His commandments, it is like I'm hugging Hashem, like I'm hugging the king. When you hug the king, it doesn't matter how many garments the king wears, how much the king is concealed in his garments. It is all comes in physical laws. The Torah has you. What do you understand? You understand physical laws, but those are the garments that conceal the king, but the king is in them. It is the will of Hashem. So when you're hugging the king, you're still hugging the king, even though in the winter he's wearing a whole bunch of clothing. That's what he says. As illustrated previously by the example of one who embraces the king. So all of the above thoughts pass through his mind and heart and lead him to resolve. It leads him to resolve that what? It is therefore fitting and proper for them, for his nefesh and ruach, his levels of the soul, to embrace God with all their heart, soul, and might. That's the conclusion. I got to embrace Hashem. I got to embrace Hashem. Dahainu kiyum at taryag mitzvos b'maaseh dibur machshava sheyasogas v'dios atera kanal. This means, by practical sense, in a practical sense, to fulfill the 613 commandments in act, speech, and thought. The thought being the comprehension and knowledge of Torah, as explained above in previous chapters, that through the Torah and commandments, one grasps God himself, so to speak. So this is that person, the Beinoni, that is not able to develop open feelings of love in his heart. Only this conviction that this is the right thing and that's what I ought to do. Why? Because I want to be connected with Hashem. Consequently, when he, the Beinoni, ponders this subject in his recesses of his heart's mind, understanding, and his mouth and heart are in accord, meaning what his heart feels finds full expression in his speech. He speaks about it, and he does it. In that he fulfills with his mouth, in his speech, the resolve of his mind and heart's understanding. So how do you fulfill it in the mouth? When you study the Torah. Namely, to direct his desire towards God's Torah, meditating on it day and night in oral study. And the same thing goes also with the action. It leads you to do the mitzvahs. And when his hands and other bodily organs too carry out the commandments as was resolved in his mind's and heart's understanding, say then, when he implements his resolution, so this tevuna, this intellectual emotions, that we said before, it's not a real open emotion, but it's intellectual emotion. He understands that this is the right thing, a conviction, which cannot properly be called love or fear, but tevuna, literally understanding. Nevertheless, it says this understanding, this intellectual emotion is clothed in the act, speech, and thought of the Torah and its commandments, providing them with intellectual power, vitality, and wings that enables them to soar on high. The Torah mitzvahs that we do needs not to stay here. It needs to rise up to the higher level to connect. What is the way to rise, make it rise up? Is the emotions, the feelings, the love, the fear. Says the Alter Rebbe, even if a person is not able to develop emotions, so this conviction and understanding, these intellectual emotions also can serve as wings to elevate the Torah mitzvahs that you do when this leads you to do the right thing, the Torah mitzvahs. And that is done just as if you have an open, revealed fear and love of Hashem. The love and fear referred to as tevuna, the understanding. Although not heartfelt emotions, nevertheless they serve as wings for one's Torah and mitzvahs in the same way as if he practiced them with real fear and love as revealed in his heart. In which case he would have performed them with a desire, fervor, and passion. In other words, if you would have a revealed love, feeling of love to Hashem, like people of a higher level of Beinanim or Tzaddikim have, then they would feel it in a real way, a desire, fervor, and passion that are felt in the heart and soul, thirsting for God due to the flaming love of God in the heart, in his heart, as explained above. Says the Alter Rebbe, but even if you don't have that feeling, that is still considered wings to elevate your mitzvahs. Why? So the Alter Rebbe says, because the bottom line is, because this understanding and feeling serves as an engine to motivate you to do the right thing, to do the Torah, to do the mitzvahs. So even though you don't have the feeling open in your heart, but still this makes you do the mitzvahs. For it is this tevuna, this understanding in his mind and in the recesses of his heart that leads him to engage in Torah and mitzvahs, as explained above. Had he not meditated on this tevuna, he would not have occupied himself with them at all, but with his physical needs alone. If you don't understand, if you don't contemplate the greatness of Hashem and come with a conclusion that the right thing to do is to be connected to Him, what would you do in your spare time? You would take the paper, you would watch your favorite movie, whatever you do. You will be busy with your bodily needs, with your physical needs. But the fact that he contemplates and he understands the right thing, what is the right thing to do, and that leads him to do the Torah mitzvahs, therefore, even though it's not an open feeling of love, it is still considered wings to elevate all of his actions of mitzvahs and study of Torah. Furthermore, says the Alter Rebbe, even if he is a serious student by nature, nevertheless, he naturally loves his body more. In other words, we said yesterday, there are two types of Beinanim. One Beinani that has to struggle with his evil inclination, and that therefore, every time he does something, it has meaning because he really created the actions as a result of fighting the evil and doing the right things. But then there is the other Beinani who has a cold, frigid nature. He's not excited with whatever most people are excited. So he sits and he loves the library, loves the books, and he sits and therefore he studies Torah and he does the mitzvahs, but without a passion, without a fight. So the question is, what about this Beinani? What about the Beinani that is not naturally inclined to the physical passion? This, says the Alter Rebbe, yet even though a person who is naturally cold and not passionate, he still loves his body more. So if he wouldn't know about the greatness of Hashem, he wouldn't think about the greatness of Hashem, what would he do with his spare time? He would go study things that he feels like that makes him feel good. Everybody does things that makes you feel good. We want to be satisfied. So even a person like this, still, if he thinks and meditates on the greatness of Hashem, and as a result, he will, rather than reading a favorite novel, he will go and he will read the Torah. Because he understands that this connects him to Hashem, and this is the right thing to do. And the same thing we're doing the mitzvahs. So this, says the Alter Rebbe, this is the rules about the tzaddikim, about the beinanim, that we need to have the Chabad, the wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. That's the basics of Chabad. To be able to have the understanding, that will help us to serve Hashem properly with feelings and emotion and elevate all of the Torah mitzvahs that we do. And tomorrow, the Alter Rebbe is going to continue to explain what's with that person who cannot develop these feelings. How, after all, is this considered true feelings of love and fear? So that will continue tomorrow, B'ezrat Hashem. Have a wonderful day.